Hey everyone, and welcome to the video and the channel. This video is going to be an instructional video to show you guys how to put together your ArcadeBoy. So the ArcadeBoy, as many of you know, some of you who don't who see this video, the ArcadeBoy is a project that I started many years ago, went through quite a few iterations and finally ended up with a final product that I then ended up launching on Kickstarter. And that Kickstarter was successful, and so I have been printing panels nonstop for the past few months. I have been reiterating some of the firmware designs on the main board. I've also been working on getting all of the wiring harnesses and screws and everything put together into kits so that everything kind of gets put together easily without much issues. So what you're looking at here is a Game Boy, and that is the only thing that you're going to need aside from your DIY kit to be able to put one of these ArcadeBoys together. Everything else the kit comes with. So a lot of you have asked, okay, so I'm going to have to sacrifice a Game Boy for this. You're not really sacrificing a Game Boy, you're more or less repurposing it, and at any point in time you'll be able to put your Game Boy back together in the way that it was. So this is a non-destructive process that allows you to use your Game Boy in the ArcadeBoy cabinet. So just to make sure this Game Boy is working, Nintendo's logo is scrolling across, we have Tetris DX in here right now. And yeah, so as you can see, it's working. This main board actually has a couple of weird graphics glitches. If you can see, like when I rotate the piece, there's some like additional, like they just happen to just not be right. So, but this is the Game Boy that I had on hand to be able to do this with. Also, start and select don't seem to be working on here, so I'm not sure what's going on with this Game Boy. Also, the down button doesn't work. So this is probably not a good device to test with. Luckily, I have another main board here. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you guys how this works without having to destroy your Game Boy, right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take the Game Boy apart. There are two parts to a Game Boy. You've got the back and the front. They are held together by 6 screws. These screws can be either tri-wing screws or Phillips screws or whatever screws, depending on whether or not it's your original Game Boy, if you've had it apart before, if someone else has had it, replaced the screws or whatever. And I don't know, but I think at some point Nintendo actually did not use tri-wing screws on these, or only used tri-wing screws in the battery compartment. Could be wrong, but who knows. So what you're going to want to do is take out all these 6 screws, and you'll see this comes apart real easy. Okay, and let's go ahead and turn it over. Make sure all these screws fall out. Looks like we might be missing one, but that's okay. We'll find it later. Oh, it's right here. Didn't fall out. Okay, we'll grab it in a minute. Anyways, the only thing holding these two pieces together now, since we took all the screws out, is this cable here that goes to the front. And that is what sends all of the signals, the controls, to the board, and also sends data back to the screen to display what is on the game, right? What's currently happening. So we're just going to pull this out. And this part of the Game Boy we don't need, so we're going to get rid of it. The only part of the Game Boy we're actually concerned with is this. And right now, my main board is not actually screwed in. There are some screws that actually hold this in place. So I'm going to take this out because we already know that it has issues. The audio connector is also held in with screws. So we're going to take these out. Now this is not something that you'll be doing, okay? I'm just going to do this because I don't want to build an ArcadeBoy with a broken main board. So you're going to want to make sure that when you do this, test your Game Boy first to make sure that it's actually functional. Alright, so we're going to put this back together. This goes like this. Oh man, these wires are all over the place. Okay, so here's that. It goes in here. Oh, there's something here. Okay. Alright, so that's there, and then this piece here actually gets pushed into... Let's put that in first. This is not supposed to be a tutorial on how to put a Game Boy back together, but here we are. Okay. And let's go ahead and put this back in. And I'm just going to say this. Like I said, you don't have to do this to your Game Boy. I only did it because I wanted a working mainboard. Okay. So, once you take your Game Boy apart, oh no, make sure that when you put this in, that your power button aligns with the, there's the other screw, aligns with the actual button that moves the switch back and forth. Okay, so once you remove your the front of your Game Boy, what you're left with is this right here. And this is all we need to use with the ArcadeBoy. We provide an FPC cable on both ends, has a connector. One will go into the Game Boy and the other will go into the ArcadeBoy mainboard. Okay, that's how that works. And then, well, we won't have to go into that right now, but this is basically what you need. Like I said, get rid of the top shell, you don't need it. Put it somewhere safe so that you can always put your Game Boy back together if you want to. So now, I'm going to lay this Game Boy to the side because we don't need this at this moment. What I do want to do is I want to go over all of the things that will come in your accessory box, right? So we've got, number one, is this cartridge port. This is going to be the port that the games go into from the controller board on the ArcadeBoy. There's a pin header on this that a 34-pin ribbon cable will plug into, and that in turn will plug into a cartridge interposer, which is this, and that's going to slide into the Game Boy, and that's going to reroute the signal from the Game Boy's game port to the game port that is in the on the controller panel. And we're going to use that later. This is an adapter to take the arcade controls, which are just signals, and convert them to signals that the ArcadeBoy mainboard can understand and interpret to basically use the controls. This circuit board here is literally what's inside of an NES controller. We've got our start and select buttons and the rest of the wiring harness that is going to connect to our arcade controls. We've got the NES controller port that's going to allow us to plug in an NES controller. We've got brackets for our joystick. These pegs, which are for putting the bottom and top halves of the side panels together. We've got speaker brackets. We've got two different sets of angle brackets. These are 4, these are 8. The 8 are for the back panels, the 4 are to keep the unit together. We've got the power switch and DC jack, 2 speakers, amplifier for the speakers, we've got power and reset buttons, and we've got the brackets that hold the Game Boy, the risers and screws for the main board. We've got the joystick that comes with the sleeve and the ball, the FPC cable that I already showed, ribbon cable, and the cartridge. Oh, and also we've got these. All right, so that's everything that's going to come in the box, the accessory box. The rest of the box is literally the stuff that's in that makes up the arcade. Okay, so now that we know what everything is, we're going to go ahead and start to put everything together. Now, the best way to do this, and of course if you don't want to follow along, come up with your own way to put it together, go for it. But I've done this very many times now, and I can tell you that I feel like the way that I'm doing it is the quickest way. And probably maybe one of the only ways. So I'm going to zoom out here a little bit so you guys can see. But what we're looking at are these pegs. And we've got 3 holes right here. And all we're going to do is slide these pegs in here. They are press fit, so it may require a little bit of force. But basically all we're going to do is connect these 2 halves just like that. All right, now we got 1 piece. We're going to do that to the other side as well. Okay. Put in 3 pegs, here, here, and here. And connect the top piece. All right, now we've got our 2 sides. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay out one side just like this. We're going to put the other side to the side and zoom out just a little more. Okay, so now what we're looking at is the inside of the side panel, the left side panel to be exact. We've got these slots here. These slots are where the panels are going to sit. The panel that I'm going to start with is this top panel. What we're going to do is first we're going to grab our bag that has our 4 corner brackets. There's also 8 screws in here, hopefully. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we're good. Now, the threaded inserts on the top panel are going to line up with the threaded insert that's at the top on each side, okay? So, based on experience, I'm going to fasten these to the top. I'm just going to screw them in. Not super tight yet. Actually, what we can do is we can make them tight. You can just grab one of these other panels and just set them next to the bracket, and then just make sure that the bracket aligns with the edge. You can use anything that's straight to align these because they have to sit all the way up against the edge. And once you get it aligned, you can tighten it down all the way. Okay. All right. So, I'm going to put these other 2 to the side along with some of these screws. Now, the way that this goes is the shorter side matches up with this. So we're going to go ahead and slot this in here. And these have really tight tolerances, okay? And that is to make sure that things stay where we put them. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to put in a screw here and tighten it down all the way. These things, this one actually is not going to move from where it's at, so you can do that. Okay, moving along, the next piece that we're going to put in is going to be the marquee. And I should mention that depending on how your shipment is packaged, the LED ballast might already be connected. If it's not, then you're going to have to basically just push it in. It's press fit, again, tight tolerances. This thing is not coming out. It's in there, okay? So at the side where the cable comes out, we're going to go ahead and set it into this slot. Alright, push it all the way in. Next, we're going to put in the speaker panel. But in order to do that, we're going to need to mount the speakers first, because if we don't, it's going to be that much more difficult. So what we need for this are speaker brackets and speakers. And also, again, depending on how things are packaged, the speakers may already be in the panel. And if they are, good for you, you don't have to put them together. If not, follow these instructions. So what we do here is we set this, first of all, the speaker panel, the speaker bracket. Just go ahead and hold it like this. You'll see that this ring here extrudes up. That's how the speaker is going to sit in here, okay? And then the cable is going to feed through this little slot. Okay, and then the speaker sits firmly in there. And then all you got to do is just press fit. And just 1 second here. We need to think about how this is going to go. Alright, so this is going to slot in this way. The cables should be facing toward the back of the arcade, so we're going to want to put this in here. And you're going to want to make sure that you have it exactly how you want it, because once these are in here, they are most likely not coming back out. There we go. Again, tight tolerances. Second speaker, let's put that in. Wire goes through, and then the speaker gets in. Make sure that this thing is straight, and push it all the way in there. And there we go, speaker panel. And then this connector is just going to connect into the amplifier when we're ready, but we're not ready yet. So let's go ahead and slot that in. Alright, next up, super easy one. Got the screen. This is how you're going to get it. It's going to be pre-assembled, the plexiglass is going to be on, the LCD panel is going to be connected, you're going to have the cable that plugs into the main board that's already going to be there as well. The only thing you got to figure out what's top, what's bottom, right? And if you look, the plastic is marked with which direction is top. So top obviously points up towards the top of the arcade. I'm going to go ahead and slide that into its slot. And there you go. LCD panel's in. Next up. Alright, next up is this. We need to build it first before we put it in, otherwise it's going to be a little difficult. So I'm going to take this whole thing right here, move it out of the way, and take a look at what we have to do here. Alright, this is a little smaller. Let's zoom in. Okay. Cartridge port, joystick, select, start, B, and A. Pretty self-explanatory. Turn it around, Here's all the threaded inserts that you're going to screw into to get this thing put together. So what we'll need, we're going to need the joystick. We are going to need start and select buttons and wiring harness. We are also going to need, what are we also going to need? We're going to need this, the adapter. And we're going to need the A and B buttons. We are going to need the cartridge interposer and the 34-pin ribbon cable. Now, we could plug that stuff in later, but you're not going to want to do that. It gets extremely difficult because you're going to work in some tight spaces. So, what do we start with? The easy things, right? So let's go ahead and we have to remove these switches that are on the buttons. So you just kind of twist counterclockwise. That switch comes out. Same here. Counterclockwise, switch comes out. Remove the nut and the washer. Alright, and then these will just go in here like this. Let's go ahead and put in the washer, thread on the nut, tighten it up. Same thing with this one. Washer, nut, tighten it, and it's in there. Switches, just wiggle them around until you get them, and then, oh, that's, you know what, let's turn these this way, I think. Yeah, it's only going to work this way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is once I have both of these in here, is I'm going to turn these around just because I feel like the cables are going to be easier to plug in if these are like that. Okay, there we go. A and B buttons. Next, next let's put in the joystick. For that, did I say we're going to need the brackets? I probably didn't. Okay, so that's the other thing we're going to need, the brackets. Make sure that the pin connector for the joystick is facing inward. If you face it outward, it's going to be backwards, and all your controls are going to be backwards. So if your controls are backwards, check the orientation of your joystick. Alright, these brackets, they just kind of slip over. On both ends. And then we're going to align the holes. Put in the screws. Start putting one in here. One over here. I usually don't tighten them down until I got them all in, just to make sure that if I have to wiggle it around a little bit to hit the thread, that it actually does it. But I think we're okay. Yep. Alright, that's in. That's in. That one's tightened. And this one's tightened. Oh yeah! We also need the cartridge port. Totally forgot about this. Let's grab that. And a little trick I have for making sure that this is aligned right. Number one, there's this, and also screws. I'm going to put a cartridge in here. So what that's going to help us do is when we drop this in here, you can see there's some wiggle room. We want to make sure that our cartridge goes in and out smoothly. And to do that, I want to make sure that I get these screws in here and tightened ever so slightly, and then move this port around until I can feel that the cartridge goes in and out smoothly. So just tight enough so that it doesn't move after we move it. Okay. And let's move it a little bit here. That's pretty much the sweet spot. Okay. So let's go ahead and tighten these screws in where we are. Okay. Out and in. Perfect. Cartridge port is connected. Now let's go ahead and connect this wiring harness, which is also the start and select buttons. 4 screws with this. Also going to go ahead and unpack this because this is going to play a vital role just in case you get wires that aren't labeled, which these ones are not labeled, and you know, sometimes you just forget to do things like label some cables. So yeah, we don't know if this is start or that's start. We don't know how this plugs into the joystick. We don't know which one of these is A and which one's B. So what I'm gonna do is, because this board gives it away. If you look closely, let me zoom in. See if I can also get it to focus. You'll see that on the right, all these pins are labeled. It is A and B and select and start, up, down, left, and right. Okay? So looking at this connector then, pin 1, which is going to be up here next to right, pin 1, and then there's 3 pins missing, and then the rest of the pins. That's how you're going to plug this connector in. Okay? It may be difficult to get it on the first time because all of these are new, they're all tight, and so you may have to press really, really hard to get this in here. Now, if we look, we have a clear picture of what's what. So these bottom cables, which are gray and white, are going to be A. So A is here. So we're going to plug gray and white into that, and don't think that gray and white is going to be the color that you'll have, because you'll likely have a different color, because all of these are going to be not from the same cable. So you're going to have, like I said, different colors. So if this is A, then this one has to be B, because it's the only other connector that is set up to connect to the arcade controls. That makes it a little easier. Alright. So next up is start and select. We need to figure out which ones select and which ones start. In my case, green and yellow are on select, and red and orange are on start. So green and yellow is this one. And so select is over here. So that's going to be my select button, and I'm going to go ahead and screw that in. Oops, tighten that up. Cool. So then this one must be start. Okay, turn it over. Perfect. Now, the only one that's left is this guy. When you plugged this, in, Remember how I said pin 1 is this one over here, and then there's 3 missing? So for me, pin 1 is white. White is right here. White is ground, and white goes to the bottom, like this, and plugs in right here, where white is going to be at the bottom, the last pin on the joystick. Okay, just like that. And then this we can just kind of tuck away in here after we plug in our other cable. This cable will go to the ArcadeBoy mainboard, which is going to connect all of these things so that we can use them as a game controller. Alright, finally, to finish this up, we're going to take and zoom out a little bit because you guys actually can't see anything. We're going to take this cartridge interposer, and that is going to connect to this ribbon cable, just like that red cable on this side, cartridge facing this way. Alright, and then finally, the way this is going to go is this is going to sit, let's see, this way. This is going to go into the Game Boy this way. So this is going to plug in should plug in this way. Okay, so looking at the controller panel this way, we are going to plug this in so that the red line is over here next to the DIY Chris logo. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say this now. This ribbon cable has to be short by design. Yep. And so it's going to be really tight to work with, which is why we're plugging in this in now. Okay. So now that we've got this panel built, we're going to go ahead and bring back our main cabinet. And zoom out some more. And this one basically, again, gets just slotted in right over here. Okay? So, next up, front. The front panel already has an LED in it. And that's going to plug into the main board. It's going to tell us whether or not the Game Boy is actually on. And so we're going to go ahead and start with, let's see, we're going to need this, which is the controller port. We're going to need this, which is the start and reset buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack these. This one comes with 2 screws. Okay, just like that. And this is just going to plug right into here. We're going to go ahead and tighten that in with the screws. Just like that. If you look on this side, you'll see it's nice and flush. Alright, now we're going to do the start and reset, or sorry, power and reset. I keep calling it the wrong thing. So power, just make sure you do this right. Power like this. Just going to go in here like that on the left side. I mean, you could put it on the right side if you want, that's all on you. gonna screw these in. And as you can see, this power button is not exactly straight. So we are going to loosen this up just a little bit so that I can move this around. That's about where I want it. So once you have it where you want it, just tighten up the screws. Okay. And then the reset goes here. And also, I should say that the reset is not currently functional, it's not used. There's no reason to actually reset the Game Boy at any time. You could just press the power button and you know, turn it off and turn it back on. There's no reason for this. There was on the Nintendo, there was a different function for the reset button, but on the Game Boy, it is not needed. Okay. So that's not to say that it'll never have a function. It may have a function one day, and it exists. And there are pin headers on the main board that are also undefined. So there may be a function for it in the future, but for now, we don't really need it. It's just an aesthetic thing. So the next thing I want to do here is, because this is another one that uses these brackets, is I want to go ahead and install these here. Otherwise, things are going to get really difficult. Alright. I'm not going to tighten them down all the way, but they will be here. Okay. Now we can bring back the ArcadeBoy. All these panels. And be careful, because while they are press fit and they are in there, they can fall out. So until we have the whole thing together, move it around carefully. Let's zoom out. The furthest I can go. Okay, that's why. Alright, so this one will just slot in here to the front. Just like that. Okay. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here into this bracket and tighten it down. Okay, that's in. Let's tighten this one. That one's tight. Okay. Now comes one of the more difficult parts of this build. Probably the most difficult. Actually, not yet. Hold on. Before we forget, we actually have to... What's the best way to route this? We actually have to... one more panel. This is the bottom. And we need to go ahead and slot that in here as well. Okay. So that's in. Got that. This. All the cables are accessible. Nothing's being pinched. Alright. The hardest part. Taking the other side and aligning all of the slots and pushing them all in. Sounds easy enough, but it can get pretty frustrating at times when you're trying to work with all these super tight tolerances. What I would recommend before you do this is to slot these in one time on each side so that you create some better tolerances to work with. Okay, I have this together now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to finalize this and make sure it doesn't fall apart, is we need to put the final screw on this angle bracket here. And this is why I said let's do the top first, because if you didn't, you'd have a really hard time accessing the screw over here because there's not a lot of space. Alright, so we're going to tighten that in. This side's already tightened, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do have to do this one over here. Now this one is going to get a little difficult to get to. So I'm gonna, sorry that you can't see it, but I would have to have a tiny little camera in here while I'm fiddling around with the screwdriver, and that would be really difficult to do. So if you'll give me 1 second while I put that last screw in here. I take it back, aligning these slots was not the hardest part, it was getting that last screw in there, but we did it. So, here we are. There's all the cables for all the things that we need to plug in. Alright. So, since we've got this together now, the next thing we need to do is we need to populate this back panel. The back panel is going to hold the ArcadeBoy mainboard, and it's going to hold our Game Boy. It's also going to have a power switch and DC jack, and it's going to also have the amplifier, so we're going to need the risers. And these things we'll get to in a minute, but we're getting close. So let's go ahead and start. Let's start with a power switch and the DC jack. Alright, what we've got here is a switch, and then we've got this mess of cables over here. First thing we'll do is let's get this DC jack in. So we'll turn this around. The larger hole is going to take the DC jack. The smaller one is for the amplifier. So let's go ahead and feed these cables through here. This one. And there we go. Alright. Next, I'm going to take, we have a washer and a nut. First thing is the washer. Oops. Gotta feed all these cables through. Here, and here, and through here. Alright, washer's in. Let's go ahead and get this nut over all these cables. And let's go ahead and tighten that down. Finger tight is fine, but you guys will get some little plastic tools maybe in your kits that'll help you tighten this down. Next is the switch. Take the nut off, turn it over. The circle goes on the bottom. Just kind of fit this in here. Turn it around. Put the nut back on, finger tight. Plug in the spade connectors into the switch. Doesn't matter which one's where. Alright, these are good. That's in there. Alright. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add the amplifier. That one's pretty simple too. Take this nut and washer and go ahead and slide this into here. Turn it over. Put your washer and your nut. There are also knobs. They are still printing right now. Just one of the last things. But the knob will just fit right over. Okay, so now we have that. The amplifier has two connectors. One is for this 2-pin cable here. That is for the power, to power the amplifier. And the second one is going to be to connect the speakers, which we're not doing yet. And then this plugs into the Game Boy. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and put in the risers and screws, risers and mainboard. So go ahead and screw these in. Okay, the orientation here matters. You want the pins for the LVDS connector, right, these, go up. Another one, this is USB-C connector facing down. So we're going to go ahead and line that up with the risers. Put screws in the corners. And tighten these down. Alright, the main board's pretty simple. We've got this amplifier, we need to connect power for it. We get that from the main board directly, and I'm going to just route it under the board, but it comes in right here on this bottom connector. Okay, let me zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so the 2-pin connector from the amplifier routes under the board and over, comes out on the side, and then plugs into the 3.3 volt power connector. This one coming from the power switch and the DC jack, that's our main 12 volt power. This is going to go all the way under the board. And come out on this side where we plug this in on this connector. Okay. So what's next? Next, we have to mount our Game Boy brackets. So that's going to be pretty easy. Put the screws in. This right here, the lip, is going to be facing inward like that on this side. Okay, tighten these down. And on the other side, all right. Now we go ahead and slide in our Game Boy. And so you're going to have to orientate it this way, and it's going to slide right in. It's going to be pretty tight, so you may have to pull these apart a little bit and just get it in here. I would say probably stop when, I don't know, maybe about right where the main board of the Game Boy lines up with the ends of these. You may have to play around with it a little bit. But anyways, this audio connector, slide it under the Game Boy, and then plug it in. Alright, these other ones can stay under here as well. Okay. Next is going to be the rest of the wires. Actually, no, sorry. Next, we're going to connect the FPC cable. Okay. Now, the way this goes is the connectors, right? There's the connectors, and then there's the blue. The connectors are going to face the outside of the main board. So you pull this up, and you slide this cable in all the way, and then you push the connector down to lock it in place, okay? And then basically you're just going to come over with it like this and slide it into the connector on the Game Boy. Right? That's it. Okay. What's next? Next is, like I said, connecting the rest of the stuff. So, a couple of cables that we can connect easily. One, this is the speakers. If you want to be real fancy, you can slide these under the board like this and have them come out the other side. Maybe, if we don't have too many things in the way. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to plug them in into the amplifier right here. Okay. All right. What's next? We've got one of these arcade controllers. This is the one that's got the adapter board. I'm just going to go ahead and plug this in right here. Okay. Notice we still have some play. It's starting to get a little tight, but we're still okay. The LED, we can plug that in. That goes right here. Alright, it's getting tighter. We can plug in the power for the Game Boy. That actually goes right here on the side. Okay. One thing we don't want to forget. Okay, right now the Game Boy is off. When this is all said and done, the Game Boy has to remain on, and the power switch in the front is going to control the Game Boy's power. Before we connect anything else here, let's go ahead and add in these brackets. They're going to go on the sides here. There's 4 of them. So we have 8 brackets total. The threaded side is going to be facing outward like this. So it's going to be up against the cabinet, where the threaded side is going to face the back panels. The short screws are going to go into the side panels, and the long screws are going to come in from the back panel into the threaded insert. So I'm going to go ahead and add these brackets here. And first I'm going to get them in there, and then I'm going to align them and tighten them the best that I can. Let me do the other side. Ideally, these could have been added before we put this entire arcade together. But it's okay. And here is the last one. All right, they're all in. Okay. So the order in which I'm going to plug the rest of this stuff in. Number one, this is the Marquee LED. The other LED was for the front. Just don't get those two confused. Next, I'm going to plug in the power, which is the 3-pin right here. That's for the Game Boy. Then I'm going to grab the LVDS cable. And as you can see, this panel is like way over here right now because we need this the space because some of these cables are pretty short. The way that this works is just align the red cables in the front with the very top pin. It's going to stick over at the bottom, but there aren't any cables at those bottom 2 pins, so it's fine. So you'll see it extend a little over. Okay. Now, let's move some of this out of the way. All right. We got 2 more things to plug in. One is going to be the NES port right here. And 2 is going to be the cartridge. The cartridge is a pain in the butt. So we're going to do that one first. And so the way you got to do this is, and I can't really show you that well on camera, you got to get the panel as close as possible. And slide the cartridge into the slot. And maybe fighting some cables in there here. Once you get the cartridge in, find the power button and turn it on. Okay. Lastly, we need to plug in the NES port. And that's that. Okay, now we can put in the screws. And to make things really nice and tight, before you tighten these down, lay this over and put some pressure and then when you tighten down the screws, everything will be nice and tight and will stay together forever. Alright, last up, the top back panel. That one's got a slant, and that's going to align with the slant at the top panel here. So if we slide that in this way, screw in the bottom. Again, try to put some pressure down on it. Don't over tighten. These are threaded inserts. If you tighten them too hard, they'll eventually try to pop out of the plastic. Alright, look at that. We're done. Oh wait, no we're not. We forgot to add this. Don't forget to add that, because at the bottom of the joystick is a spot for a slotted screwdriver to hold the shaft in place so that you can actually hold the shaft in place so you can screw the ball on tight. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick test. We're not going to do a whole like playthrough of this thing, but we'll at least see that it works. Okay, volume is on, and we have so that's it. That's the entire assembly instructions of the ArcadeBoy. When it's all done, this is what you're looking at. Okay. And that's it for the video. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Feel free to reach out to me directly, and I will do my best to answer and help out in any way that I can. Hopefully you guys enjoy building this as much as I enjoyed basically designing it, bringing it to life, and this has been definitely a fun and challenging experience. So again, I hope you guys enjoy it and get some good use out of it. And I will see you guys next time.